All right, boys and girls, this is when Thomas Edison fed someone worms. And it is book club. The number of the test is 18527 book level 4.1. All right, boys and girls. Thomas Alva Edison was the seventh child of Samuel and Nancy Edison. He was born on a winter day in 1847. Everyone called him Thomas. Little Al. How's my little Al? His dad would ask. In time, his father would answer that question with curious and smart. These words would describe Thomas Edison for the rest of his life. As a man, Edison became a great inventor and businessman. His success grew from the curiosity, smarts, and wonder he showed as a child. When Thomas Edison was very young, his parents took him to his sister's farm. Little Thomas wandered off to play. When he failed to come back, his sister and her husband grew worried. They found Thomas in the barn, sitting happily on the goose's nest. I saw baby chickens come out of eggs the old hen was sitting on, Thomas said. So I thought I could make little gooses come out of the goose eggs if I sat on them. If the hens and geese can do it, why can't I? Little Al lived with his family in Milan, Ohio. The town was a grain center and port. Wheat was brought in by wagons, stored in bins, and shipped out by boats. There were grain bins near little Al's home. As a boy, he played among them. He would walk the rims, waving his arms to keep his balance. One day, little Al lost his balance and fell in a bin. Luckily, someone rescued him before he was harmed. Little Al loved to wander down to the Milan shipyards. He liked to watch the men building boats. He often peppered them with questions. He's as inquisitive as a young red squirrel, exclaimed one man. He's a nervous little question box, said another. Maybe little Al asked the men about the shape of the boats. Perhaps he asked about the tools they used to build them. Or maybe he wanted to know how boats float. There were other places to explore besides the grain bins and shipyards. Once, while exploring a pasture, little Al discovered a bee's nest. He crouched down to observe it and focused hard on the bees. Didn't even see the ram that lived in the pasture. Al got a nasty surprise when the ram chased him. Bah! Bleated the ram. Mama! Yelled Al. At age 7, little Al and his family moved to Port Huron, Michigan. He continued to be curious, especially about birds. Little Al observed two things about birds. First, birds flew. Second, birds ate worms. I bet birds fly because they eat worms, little Al thought. Maybe worms will make people fly too. To test his theory, he smashed up worms. Then he blended the goop with water. I only asked a girl to drink his special mixture. The girl who drank the worms did not fly, but she did get sick. Little Al also tested his theory of flight on an old friend. He knew that Schiltle's powder made gas. Little Al asked his buddy to swallow the powder. He thought that maybe it would make his friend fly. This trick did not work either, and the boy never flew. Little Al wasn't just curious about flight, he was also interested in communication. As an experiment, he and his friend John Clancy built a telegraph line. It ran for 1 mile, 1.6 kilometers, through woods between their homes. To test the line, the two boys sent newspaper stories to each other. The line worked. For most of his life, little Al was homeschooled by his mother. At home, he spent happy hours reading. He also enjoyed creating things and solving problems. He made electrical toys and experimented with magnets. He also collected materials for his chemistry projects. When his supplies cluttered the house, his mother said, "Take it to the basement, Al." In the basement, little Al had quite a place to work in. Thomas was a boy who had a knack for business. He started by getting a job as a candy butcher when he was 12 years old. A candy butcher was a person who sold things to train passengers from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. daily. Thomas worked a train that traveled between Fort Huron and Detroit, Michigan. Magazines, newspapers, he called strolling up and down the aisle. He peddled candy, cigars, and peanuts. And he had fruit, sandwiches, joke, joke book, and many other things to sell too. Thomas set up a printing press and a train car. When the train stopped between cities, Thomas wrote articles. He printed them in a newspaper he called the Weekly Herald. Then he sold the newspaper on the train. He also set up a small chemistry lab in a train car. When a chemistry experiment once started a fire on the train, Thomas was in big trouble. "Get off this train," yelled the conductor. All of all of Thomas's things were dumped into the nearest train platform. That was the end of the chemistry experiments on the train. But Thomas continued to work as a candy butcher. Working on the railroad brought Thomas good luck too. One day, a 3-year-old boy wandered in front of a runaway boxcar. Sprinting, Thomas grabbed the little boy and carried him to safety. The boy's father happened to be the telegraph operator at the railroad station. "I'd like to repay you," said the grateful man. "I'll teach you how to run a telegraph." "It's a deal," said Thomas. Thomas was a telegraph operator by the age of 15. For the next 5 years, he traveled across the Midwest. He earned money by sending telegraph messages, and he thought about how to improve telegraphs. When Thomas wasn't working, he read and thought about science. He enjoyed carefully observing the people and machines around him. To Thomas, the world was a very, very interesting place. Even as Thomas Edison grew up, he never lost the wonder he felt as a child. He never stopped asking questions. More importantly, he never stopped working to answer them. Thomas felt that hard work, the ability to keep trying, and common sense were needed to achieve a goal. When he was an old man, Thomas once told a group of school children, "I'm not a genius. Any success that I have had in life is due to hard work. Success is 98% hard work and sticking at the job until it is completed." Afterward, a list of everything Thomas Edison invented and accomplished could fill a very thick book. The following are just a few of his most famous accomplishments. Edison invented and improved a machine that helped people keep track of the stock market. At age 24, he sold it for $35,000. Later, Edison invented a telegraph called the quadruplex that could send four signals, two in each direction. He sold this invention for even more money. Thomas Edison was most famous for inventing the phonograph and the electric light bulb. He set up a company to deliver electrical power for his light bulbs. Over the years, this company grew into one of the largest companies in the world. A battery for an electric car and a motion picture camera were two of Thomas Edison's later inventions. He invented and created even into his 80s. He never stopped doing the things he did as a child: observing, wondering, questioning, and solving problems. When he died in 1931, people dimmed the lights in their homes and buildings. They wanted to honor Thomas Edison as the man who helped bring much light to the world.